Hello dear students, good evening. Welcome to Bajirao Ias Academy interview guidance program. So in today's lecture we are going to discuss about the delimitation, the process of or the procedure of delimitation. Now delimitation exercise has been in news continuously since past few months. So therefore it is in news specifically because of the 2026 date has been coming on, and this is the date this was fixed by the earlier 42nd constitutional amendment act. So therefore in this context we will understand what is delimitation exercise, what are the constitutional provisions with respect to the delimitation exercise. Now why the center has been showing interest in delimitation. Now what are the consequences of delimitation on the states which have made significant progress with respect to controlling population. Now before understanding what is delimitation, why it is in news, we need to understand this. So delimitation of constituencies of Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assemblies is to be carried out on the basis of the first census after 2026. So in 2021 there is a census. Okay, so because of the COVID-19 pandemic the census was delayed. So after 2026, if the data of 2021 is published, then based on the 2021 data, the delimitation exercise will be carried out, and this is what the center has been saying about the delimitation exercise. Now in this context we will understand what is delimitation. So delimitation is generally defined as the procedure or the process of redrawing the existing boundaries of the Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assemblies. Now if you look at the constituencies across India, so we have the Lok Sabha constituencies as well as state legislative assembly constituencies. However, over a period of time what happens, the population changes takes place, the demographic changes takes place in each district, in each constituency. So therefore in constitution it is mandated that after every census delimitation exercise has to be carried out. So this delimitation commission has been appointed by the president on the sanction of the parliament. So delimitation means the process of redrawing boundaries of Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly seats to represent the changes in the population over a period of time. So the overall objective is to ensure fair representation of all constituencies and all regions across the country. So this is the objective or the purpose of delimitation exercise. So what is the main task of the delimitation commission? So the main important task of delimitation commission is redrawing the boundaries of Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies based on the population data of recent census, that is the 2021 census. Based on the census or based on recent census, the delimitation commission will redraw the boundaries of the constituencies of state legislative assembly as well as Lok Sabha. So this is what is delimitation exercise and the delimitation commission. Now again we will understand, we have already understood what is delimitation. So delimitation is actually a process of fixing the number of seats and redrawing the boundaries of the existing territorial constituencies in each state for both Lok Sabha elections as well as state legislative assembly elections. Now what is the objective of constituting a delimitation commission? So the major objective is providing fair and equal representation to all segments of the population. So there should not be there should not be anything where unequal representation. For example, states like Uttar Pradesh have more population. So they have more population. On the other hand, states like Sikkim have a lesser population. Okay, so here based on the population Okay, the proportion of population, both Lok Sabha seats as well as state legislative assembly seats will be demarcated or redrawn. The constituencies will be redrawn by the delimitation commission. So therefore ensuring equal representation of all, or equal representation of population across the country. So this is the objective, this is the core objective of the delimitation exercise. Now in this context we will understand the constitutional provisions with respect to delimitation exercise. Article 82 as well as Article 170. Article 82 plus Article 170 talks about the delimitation exercise. So these are the constitutional provisions. So they provide that the number of seats in the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies and their division into the territorial constituencies shall be readjusted after every census. Okay, for example, so there was a census, 2011 census and 2021 census. Similarly, if we go forward into future 2031 census. So Article 82 and Article 170 have been mandating that after every census, after every 10 years, there should be a delimitation exercise, and the delimitation exercise should readjust the population in each of these constituencies. Okay. Accordingly, delimitation commission will be constituted. So it is set up under the Act of Parliament or a legislation by the Parliament. So which performs the delimitation process. The process of readjusting the boundaries of the constituencies is done by the delimitation commission, and this process is called as delimitation process. So such an exercise was carried out after 1951, 1961, 1971 census. So far the delimitation exercise has been carried out 3 times: 1951, 61 and 71 census. So over a period of time, what happens? The existing Lok Sabha seats have freezed in order to control the population, because the states will not take any measures to control population if we continuously redraw or continuously constitute the delimitation commissions based on the population, because more number of population means more seats. Okay, more number of population means more number of seats for different states. So because of this reason, states will not take any measures to control the population, because more number of seats means that it will politically benefit those states. On the other hand, states would see the significant increase in the population that could have a lot of stress and pressure on the existing resources. So because of this reason, up till 2026 the Lok Sabha seats, the existing Lok Sabha seats have been stalled. Now there are certain exemptions which are provided as part of delimitation exercise. For example, several states such as Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland and Manipur, so these states were exempted from the delimitation exercise because of the safety and security issues, and because of this reason these states were exempted from the delimitation exercise. Now what is a delimitation commission? We have talked about the delimitation and delimitation exercise. Now in this context we will also understand in a detailed manner what is a delimitation commission. So Article 81 of the Indian Constitution defines the composition of Lok Sabha, and this very same article, Article 81 of the Indian Constitution, also mandates that composition should represent changes in the population. Okay, so the composition of Lok Sabha should also reflect the changes in the population that takes place over a period of time. Okay, so this is what Article 81 of the Indian Constitution says. So in order to represent the changes that have been taking place in the population over a period of time, generally delimitation exercise is carried out. So in this delimitation exercise, so it is carried out by an independent Commission. So as I have already told you, the delimitation exercise is usually provided by the legislation by the parliament. However, the delimitation commission is appointed by the President of India. So this is an independent delimitation commission, and it is appointed by the government of India under the provisions of Delimitation Commission Act. Please remember, the delimitation exercise earlier was done in 1951, 1961 as well as 1971. So apart from that, we need to talk about the Article 82 of the Indian Constitution as well. Now what Article 82 talks about? It actually provides the Parliament to readjust after completion of each census. So this is what the delimitation exercise is. So it actually gives the power Parliament to readjust after completion of each census every 10 years seats that have to be allocated for the House of People, that is to Lok Sabha and to the states legislative assemblies. Okay, so by dividing them into different territorial constituencies, both Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assembly territorial constituencies. However, the delimitation commission, this delimitation commission is appointed by the President. Okay, so please remember this, the delimitation commission is appointed by President. Now apart from that, the election commission the delimitation commission usually works in collaboration with the election commission of India, because the delimitation is ultimately about conducting free and fair elections along with equal representation for the population in every region. So therefore, in this context, the delimitation commission would use the expertise of the election commission of India. Therefore, it uses or it works in collaboration with the election commission of India. So therefore, for example, if it is carried out, the delimitation exercise is carried out at the central level, it collaborates with the election commission of India. Suppose the delimitation exercise is carried out in a particular state, then it collaborates with the election commission of India along with the nodal officer in the state election commission. Okay, so this is what is the major responsibilities of the delimitation commission. Now apart from that, when we talk about the composition of the delimitation commission, it usually composed of the retired Supreme Court judge. Okay, so retired Supreme Court judge is the chairman of the delimitation commission, and apart from the retired Supreme Court judge, Chief Election Commissioner of India is a member, and respect to state election commissioners were also part of the delimitation commission. However, one provision that you need to understand, and it is very important, that Constitution clearly mandates that the Commission's orders are final with respect to the delimitation or redrawing, readjusting the boundaries of various constituencies of both Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies, and these orders which are given by the delimitation commission cannot be questioned before any court of law. Okay, so it would hold up an election indefinitely. Okay, because if the procedure is questioned by the court, or the orders of the orders of the delimitation commission is questioned by the court, it would lead to holding elections for indefinite period of time, and that is not desirable for a democratic polity like India. So hence the Constitution has clearly mandates that the Commission's orders are final and they cannot be questioned before any court of law. And after that, we need to talk about the role of the delimitation commission as well. So the delimitation commission usually determines the number and the boundaries of these constituencies in a way that the population of all seats so far as practicable is the same. Okay, so it makes sure that every constituency has the same number of population. So this is how the delimitation commission usually do the delimitation exercise of readjusting and redrawing boundaries, so that every constituency has almost as practicable as possible same number of population. So after that we need to talk about the public feedback as well. Now the delimitation commission also asks about the public feedback, right? So the draft proposals of the delimitation commission are published for public opinions, for example holding sittings after hearing the public. So it also consider objections and suggestions which are given by the public in the public feedback mechanism. So therefore accordingly it can carry out the changes based on the objections and suggestions provided by the general public. So ultimately the delimitation commission will publish the final order. So therefore it is published in the original Gazette of India, and the concerned state gazette, it comes into the force that date is specified by the president. Okay, so generally this final order that is given by the delimitation commission, it is published in the Gazette of India, right? So after this it will also be published in the Gazette of the respective state government, and the date of this delimitation orders will come into force when the president specifies. Okay, so this is about the final orders of the delimitation exercise, and the delimitation commission will also have will also get the public feedback in terms of it listens to the objections and suggestions of the normal public, and the delimitation commission makes sure that every constituency has equal number of representation or equal population as practicable as possible. And after that the courts cannot intervene with respect to the final orders of the delimitation commission, because that would lead to holding up elections, withholding elections for an indefinite period of time. So for a democracy that is not desirable. And when we revise the composition of the delimitation commission, it comprises of a retired Supreme Court judge, a chief election commissioner of India, and respective state election commissioners. So these were members of the delimitation commission. Now in this context we need to understand why the delimitation exercise has been pending since 1976. So please remember, earlier we talked about the delimitation exercise that was carried out in the year 1951, 1961 as well as 1971. So however, since 1976 the delimitation exercise has been pending. Now why it is pending, that is what we have to understand. So firstly, the 1971 census, the current Lok Sabha seats are based on, so currently we have 552 Lok Sabha seats. So these 552 Lok Sabha seats were actually based on 1971 population census. Okay, so there was no delimitation exercise after 1976. It is primarily to ensure or to control population. It is primarily to control population, because when we conduct the delimitation exercise after every 10 years, so states with more population will be incentivized with more number of seats. So that will benefit several political parties, or it will serve the political interests of the different political class. So therefore in this context, after 1971 census, the delimitation exercise has been stalled till 2026. So the seats were frozen as per the 1971 population census. So this is to encourage the population control measures. Okay, so states could undertake the population control measures, because even if you have more number of population, it will not incentivize you by getting more number of seats. So therefore it will encourage the population control measures, and states with higher population growth, so they do not end up having higher number of seats. For example, if you look at states like UP, Bihar, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, so they have a high population growth, so these states may not end up getting more number of seats compared to several other South Indian states. So they have made significant progress with respect to control of population. Okay, so the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, so this was also called as the mini constitution. So this 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in the year 1976, it has froze the number of Lok Sabha seats and put off delimitation for 25 years until 2001 census. Okay, so this was done under the delimitation exercise is usually done under the article 82 of the Indian Constitution. However, the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in the year 1976, what it has done, it has stalled the delimitation exercise for 25 years until 2001. Okay, so however, followed by this, subsequently 84th Constitutional Amendment has been made in the year 2001 to further extend this deadline. Okay, so this deadline was further extended for the delimitation till 2026. Now the current NDA government is not interested to extend this deadline further. Rather, the current government wanted to conduct a delimitation exercise. So this is where the problem comes. Now if you look at the North Indian states, like earlier we have discussed UP, Bihar, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, so they will get the more number of seats compared to the South Indian states, especially Kerala, Tamil Nadu, because they have made a significant progress with respect to controlling population. Now because they have made significant progress in controlling population, the delimitation exercise will penalize them for control of population or taking up population control measures, and this is where the actual conflict has been arising. So therefore 84th Constitutional Amendment Act 2001, so this deadline has been further extended up to 2026. So hence population based on which the number of seats is allocated to refers to population as per the 1971 census. So as I have already told you, currently Lok Sabha have 552 seats and these seats were based on the 1971 population census. Now the first census after 2026 will be the census of 2031. Okay, so the government says, or the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act says, that the delimitation exercise will be carried out as per the population data after 2026. However, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the 2021 census was delayed. Okay, so this census was delayed by the central government. So therefore, in this context, now the central government is on the process to conduct the delimitation exercise based on the 2021 census itself, because the delimitation exercise has been the central government has been carrying out the delimitation exercise after 2026, but it should be based on the 2021 population census because it was delayed. Now in this context, we need to understand certain issues. So what are the issues? Why there's an issue with respect to the delimitation exercise? First and foremost issue that we need to understand is population explosion. Okay, now if you look at states like UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, there is a high population growth. So therefore they have not taken any measures to control population. If delimitation exercise is carried out, then certainly this delimitation will incentivize these high population growth states with high number of seats in the Lok Sabha. So therefore it has been benefiting these states because most of the political class and even the government will focus mostly on these states, UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, in order to gain votes. So therefore there will be a general neglect of general neglect on the in the other states. And apart from that, lower representation for few states also create a disaffection towards the center. And apart from that, the population control measures is another aspect that we need to talk about. Several South Indian states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh have made a significant amount of progress with respect to population control, and they have taken number of measures to control the population. Okay, so they have shown the positive population control measures. So even though they have shown the population positive population control, but now the delimitation exercise will disincentivize them for controlling population, because a lesser number of population means less number of seats in the Lok Sabha. So that certainly disincentivizes these states with respect to the allocation of seats. So after that, we need to talk about the representation aspect also. For example, there are several smaller northern Indian states such as Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. So these are smaller North Indian states, and apart from that there are few northeastern states as well. So they may be at the disadvantaged position compared to the large northern states like UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan in terms of representation, because please understand these states have more population, so therefore they will have a more number of Lok Sabha seats from the state, and this effectively means that there will be more representation. On the other hand, for the smaller states there's a less representation. Okay, so for smaller states there will be less representation, but from UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh there will be more representation. And after that, it is also concerns the federal principles of the Indian Indian federalism. For example, India is a federal polity. We have the federal government as well as the federal units. So in this context, it contradicts with the federal principles of the country. So federal principles usually emphasizes on equitable representation across the regions. Now if you look at US Congress or US Senate, all the states have equal representation. So therefore in Indian context, all states will not have equal representation in the Lok Sabha. So therefore it says that it is concern or it is a violation of the federal principles, because all states or all units will not have equal representation in the Lok Sabha. This is also considered as another issue with the delimitation exercise. Now in this context, what should be the way forward? So first thing we can discuss is a fixed number of seats, not increasing the number of seats, fixed number of seats, or we can freeze it further. So that will not incentivize the states which have not taken any measures to control the population, not taken any measures to control the population. So in this context, please understand that population growth is a challenge, especially for a country like India with the limited resources. And apart from limited resources, we also have limited infrastructure. So therefore in this context, we need to encourage the state governments to undertake population control measures. So the delimitation exercise based on the 2021 census would certainly disincentivize the positive population growth control states and incentivize or will provide concessions to states which have not taken any measures with respect to the population control. So therefore there should be a fixed number of seats, the seats should be further stalled. There should be no delimitation exercise. So the second most important aspect is we need to empower the local bodies, because local bodies have a very important role when it comes to change in these grassroots level governance or grassroots level democracy. So therefore strengthening the democracy at the grassroots level is a very important reform that has to be looked into, and for that we need to empower the local bodies, gram sabha, panchayats, municipalities. So therefore it ultimately results in participatory governance, because citizens will actively take part in the governance process and day-to-day basis. So therefore we need to focus on strengthening the local governance, and apart from that we need to devolve more powers, funds and functions to these local bodies, and they have to be significantly increased to further strengthen the democracy at the grassroots level. Now ultimately we need to look into strengthening of the democracy at the grassroots level, because the grassroots level democracy directly engages with the citizens and their actual needs. Now when we talk about the delimitation exercise, so the delimitation exercise has to be carried out in such a manner that the concerns of several smaller states and even the South Indian states that have made significant progress in controlling the population, so their concerns have to be addressed. So it should not leads to any such any such trouble or problem between the center as well as the state governments when we undertaking the delimitation exercise. So it should be acceptable for all the units in a federation like India. Okay, so that's all in this lecture about the delimitation. So delimitation is also a very important topic for mains examination, prelims examination, and even for the interview, especially recent center interest in delimitation of the constituencies. Okay, so that's all in this lecture, and thank you.